This video is going to be a combination of 3 stories that surround the kidnapping. And here's number 1. I was kidnapped as a child by my father. I read it. Today I write this as a 36-year-old man. You ought to bear with me as the details of the story are vague and a blur, but I will share what I remember. In the summer of 1993, I was in 1st grade. My parents had been divorced for many years, with my mother having sole custody. As a child, I barely remembered my father, but he would make his brief appearance or send gifts on Christmas or on my birthdays. Seeing my dad always made me happy, as I was far too young to comprehend the complexities of a bad relationship of a marriage. After school one day, I was shocked to come outside and see my father waiting for me. My grandma usually picked me up from school, but never my father. He had a small black car, a beater. He always seemed to dress nice, suspenders, slacks, hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. I remember getting into his car and smelling what I know now as to be an adult, to be a clove. I later gathered that he had a habit of rolling his own cigarettes and gained that he must have been in the clove phase. There's a gap in time. Now it's nighttime. I'm watching the fluorescent lights from miscellaneous stores fly by my passenger seat window. A gas station I can't remember. Baron's ice cream at an intersection. And more time lost. I'm not running around with another kid in and out a yellow lit apartment corridors. Some doors are open and we go into one. There are kids in a back bedroom playing Sega. I watch as Sonic zips through the loops and listen to familiar music that momentarily makes me feel safe. I suddenly realize I'm very alone with complete strangers, and I found my way back outside. Another gap. My belly is full of bean burritos. I'm looking down a very dark hallway in my father's apartment. I'm standing next to an aquarium giving blue ambient light that sits on my face. I want to go home. Something doesn't feel right. In an attempt to comfort me, my father gives me a toy flashlight that projects the Batman symbol. I shine it down the black hallway. The cheap plastic of the switch fidgets and stubbornly sides clicking on and off. My father's on the phone and he's upset. Voice raised. I apologize for not knowing what happened next, but I can confidently say I was safely returned by my father. My mother had no idea where he lived, and we would sometimes drive around at night in efforts to find mentioned landmarks to trigger my memory. I haven't thought much about this until night. It really made me feel wrong and uncomfortable. As you may have guessed, I do not have a relationship with him anymore. Number 2. I think I was almost kidnapped today. This is fresh. I was 17 years old and was at Tim Hortons drawing random people, and some guy came up to me, started asking me about my drawings. We started a conversation and my work came up and how I was waiting to go to work. He asked me where I worked and what time. I answered innocently. Then he asked me if I lived alone, which immediately set off some alarms. But it's not the rule of the story. He tells me he's a truck driver, and I said I thought that was a cool job. He left for a couple minutes to get himself a drink and offer me one. I said no because I don't take drinks from strangers. He walked away saying that he'd come back to me and talk to me more. After he left, I started to get a really bad feeling. So I texted my mom a description of the man's appearance, which I often do if someone's making me uncomfortable in a scary way. I told her not to worry. Just told her it's probably my anxiety. When he came back, he asked me if I wanted to go a tour of his truck. I said no thank you. He just left me again. I called my mom and told her what just happened, having a panic attack in my bathroom. Then when I sat back down, he came up to me one last time and told me he was leaving. He asked me for my Snapchat and I told him I don't have one. I sat in my anxiety and watched him cross the highway to the parking lot of my work, which happens to be a truck stop. He was still there at 10:38. He was there for about an hour and 30 minutes, and I had to be at work at 11. So I thought it was the best bet to ask the Tim Hortons staff to walk me over, but they ended up calling the cops. I didn't want them to call the cops. In fact, I was adamantly against it, but they did anyway. When the cops arrived, I explained everything, but they were gone by the time everything was finished. I managed to get a police officer to drive me across the road. I felt like I was wasting the cops' time because I was in immediate danger, and I felt like I was being just dramatic. Number 3. The time I believed I could have been kidnapped. It's up to me and my friend Nick about 2 months ago. Now, I had to start off by saying that I'm non-binary. I signed a few my birth, and he's a trans male. Either of us passed, and we were both under 5'3". I'm 19, he's 18. We had to meet up at this cupcake and coffee place, usually around late afternoon or early evening. That day, it was later. We have our cupcakes and tea by the time we leave the cafe, and the sun has gone down. Good time to go home, right? Well, we had this tradition. You see, this cafe was in a strip mall, and it had a lot of big lots. Our tradition was that we each buy one cursed item from said big lots. We bought a carton of Whoppers and a tub of cheese balls. Earlier we had discussed that I would have walked him part of the way home. As told me that Hugh had a random drunk try to grab him and he was jogging earlier that week in that area we would have to walk through. By the time we left it was already dark out. As we were walking to school that is between the cafe and Nick's house, it came up in conversation that we didn't really have anything to protect ourselves with. I didn't have my pocket knife with me, but no worries. Nothing was going to happen, right? Wrong. We were almost at the school and had just crossed the street needed to get in there. In fact, when we heard a car approaching the intersection, we turned and see that the car is a white pickup truck. Both of us immediately got a bad vibe. The car starts to slow down too soon and approaches the intersection too slowly, which is unusual as most of the time cars just speed through. The entire time the guy's watching us instead of going through. He pulls over onto a lane closer to us and stops and continues to watching us. He's about 10 feet away. Close enough that we can see his face. He was a middle-aged man, but we couldn't see how big he was. We could see, however, that he was grinning. Then we saw someone shuffling in the back of the car, but it was too dark to see what the other guy looked like. That guy's grin faltered when he noticed us staring back at him. Nick's in a fighting stance, ready to bash whoever comes out the car with a carton of Whoppers, and I'm behind him, looking over his shoulder, clutching my carton of cheese balls. I don't know what made the dude leave. After what felt like a solid minute, he drove off. We didn't look away from the car until it was at an eye shot. Both of us walked away from that counter feeling like we narrowly escaped something horrible. Now, I know hearing this secondhand may not seem scary, but it was to me, and it's had a lasting effect. Now, I don't go anywhere without a pepper spray and a pocket knife.